Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. Today we're back with the Beastmen, and oh dude, what's wrong with your eye, dude? Man, that buddy's got an issue there. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to the army compositions. Beastmen going to be taking on the Empire, so let's get straight to it. I've got Morgr, the Boring Gave. We've also got the I Have More Sleep here, Regiment of Renowned Cygor. Infantry line is going to be Ungor Spearman Herd with shields, and we've also got some Gore Herd with shields. The reason I like the shields is these guys are more meant as an anvil. I mean, they will do okay against state troops, certainly, especially with that Primal Fury. Makes these guys pretty cost-effective low-tier spearmen. But yeah, the shields just help block missiles, which, of course, against the Empire, you can definitely be facing a lot of, like, Pistoliers, Free Company Militia, Handgunners, Crossbowmen, all that sorts of good stuff. So I definitely like to have the shields in this particular matchup. For Magic, decided to have a bit of fun, and we've got a Bray Shaman with the Lore of Beasts here. He's sporting Wiston's Wild form here, which, with the Beastmen, it's pretty solid, especially to cast on a low armor non-AP unit like regular Centaurs, or if you're charging in, let's say you've got some Centaurs with throwing axes and you're charging them into melee momentarily, you may want to pop that Wiston's Wild form just to make them a bit tankier and they hit a bit harder as well. And he's also got Amber Spear, of course, going to be acting as my las cannon chariot. And speaking of Centaurs, we've got the unit of Regiment of Renown, the Regiment of Renowns over here. This is a regular unit of Centaurs with Grey Weapons. Then we've also got 4 Centaurs with throwing axes, 2 here, and 2 over here as well. Apologies, guys, I'm a little bit under the weather. I seem to have caught a slight cold, so bear with me here. But anyway, you can see my opponent's build. He's got a las cannon chariot of his own here, the Regiment of Renown Tempelhof Luminarch here, an insanely powerful unit. It's also got the Bound Net of Ammontok, as well as the Locust of Hysh, so it is going to be reducing my power recharge rate, unfortunately. It's also got Aura of Protection, so when good old Balthazar's magic is high, he'll get that ward save in that area of effect around the Tempelhof Luminarch. Balthazar himself has got just Final Transmutation, looks like actually Searing Doom as well, Arcane Conduit and Staff of Volans. Of course, we've got Royal Alto of Griffites here, looks like some Reiksguard to the flanks as well, very good stuff. 2 units of Handgunners, Spearmen with shields are the only infantry here, melee infantry that is. We've also got the Hammer of Witches and a Witch Hunter. So, without further ado, let's get the battle underway. You can see Balthazar obviously just going to be chilling back, letting the Luminarch open up some shots. They're going to be going after the Eye of More Sleep, which is a very high value target, but I'm going to go ahead and initially I'm targeting the Tempelhof Luminarch, thinking, okay, it's a Regiment of Renown, potentially we can actually hit the Luminarch directly, which would be pretty good. Move my Centaurs up through the woods to do a bit of scouting, just to make sure the woods were clear. Then we went ahead and moved around, and the Centaurs are going to be doing some skirmishing with these Reiksguard here. We are going to have to be careful of the Handgunners. Oh man, direct hit in the distance there on the Eye of More Sleep. But yeah, the Handgunner is definitely going to be able to turn and return fire here, which is exactly what you should do in this situation, rather than committing with your cavalry. Over here, I'm a little bit late on my pull away, and I actually do get hit by the Reiksguard there. Granted, the Reiksguard are going to take a bit of damage in return from those armor-piercing axes, so it's a bit of a wash at the end of the day. Not a wash at all, though, is my Cygor getting pounded by the Tempelhof Luminarch and the Hammer of Witches here. I went ahead and I'm like, okay, I'm never going to win against the Luminarch. Let's go ahead and just see if we can take out these nice thick blocks of handgunners. And we've already got 1 hit on there. You can see a bunch of handgunners splattered there. We're going to get 1 more direct hit and pretty much just delete the entire unit of handgunners, more or less. So that's pretty good. We've got the Bray Shaman moving up and around with the Centaurs to kind of go ahead and get a full encirclement. You can see I've got my infantry line on this side, Centaurs all around in the back. Lots of throwing axes going to be going after these Reiksguard. And the thing is, because I have more mobile units than my opponent, he's got, what, 3 units of cavalry, I've got, what, 6? I'm going to be able to go ahead and pull him in different directions. You can see these Centaurs are going to get collapsed on pretty hard here, but that's going to leave this entire back line open, more or less, to all the rest of these Centaurs. So we're going to go ahead and charge in on these handgunners. The Reiksguard are going to come in, but the Sons of Goros will do pretty good against them. You can see the infantry line is approaching ever so slowly, but yeah, we've still got reserve Centaurs just throwing in axes from the side here, so initially it might seem like a very favorable engagement for the Empire, but my opponent very wisely pulling away some of his units here. Unfortunately, this unit of handgunners did get taken out, but a very nice final transmutation there. I'm going to go ahead and try and split my troops up to mitigate the effectiveness of that, but it did do quite a bit of damage there, which is pretty nice. Unfortunately, you can see the Eye of Morslib here going to be taken out. It's getting very, very low, and a punishing barrage there from the Hammer of Witches, just taking it down to only 370 hit points, and it has routed now, so pretty unfortunate. You can see that has tipped the balance of power pretty far in my opponent's favor, losing that on such a high value unit. But we have been able to take out both units of handgunners here, and being very patient, we're going to slowly try and work through these Reichsguard. You can see these other two cav got a little bit separated, trying to chase off my Bray Shaman, which rallied right by the side of the map, which is a great, great benefit for me. I'm not 100% sure. I know at one point I did get a pretty good Amber Spear. I don't know if it already happened, but might have already missed it, unfortunately. We'll see. But these Reichsguard here overcommitting a little bit. Now I'm going to be caught out by the Centaurs here, and you can see the melee engagement has also gone down in the front line. We summoned up some Chaos Spawn to get in the back line. They're blowing up the Hammer of Witches here. Fortunately, not in time to save the Cygor. You can see its body laying over here on the hill. But yeah, nonetheless, it looks like Accusation going down on Morgur. He does have regeneration and magic resistance, which, by the way, some of you have been asking. Accusation, Rune of Wrath and Ruin, those bound to direct damage abilities still do magic damage. They still count as magic damage, just so you're aware. Morgur does have magic resistance, though, and in addition to his regeneration, that's going to make him pretty resistant to that Accusation. In addition to that, he's also got missile resistance, so in general, the Witch Hunter is really going to struggle to snipe Morgur, which is definitely a benefit for me. Same thing with Balthazar. I mean, obviously, Overcast Final Transmutation is still very powerful, but Morgur, and that's the main reason you bring him as the Beastmen, is to avoid, because my opponent definitely went for a heavy Lord sniping build. Morgur is probably the only one who could have survived this. Between the Final Transmutation, the Luminarch, and everything. I mean, granted, I have been able to pressure the Luminarch pretty well, and Balthazar used up one of his Final Transmutations on my cavalry rather than on my characters, which was definitely beneficial for me. But yeah, you can see Balthazar is actually going to dive down here. This is honestly a bit risky. Beastmen Chaos Spawn do cause poison damage, so diving, especially around them, because they have high mass and poison, they're very good at pinning in flying units. It's very risky, but yeah, Luminarch somehow shooting reverse 360 no-scope at Morgur, but missing wide, unfortunately, much like the COD kits do. And then, yeah, we're going to use Wiston's Wild Form. Unfortunately, I meant to cast it on those Centaurs there, but hey, you know, 110 armor on that Bray Shaman. If Balthazar decides to dive him here, Balthazar doesn't have AP necessarily, so that in and of itself will be pretty beneficial. We definitely will get some value there. Centaurs with throwing axes were pulled back a little bit just to kind of get away from the Altdorf Griffites who have come in. Probably going to go ahead and finish off the Bray Shaman. Seeing them coming, I'm going to go ahead and bowl through the Spearmen and then pull through my own infantry and use them to kind of screen out here. The Altdorf Griffites decide instead to go after the Centaurs, which were trying to finish off the Luminarch here. Definitely a good pick there. Luminarch was able to get some effective fire on my Cygor, but other than that, it hasn't been able to get too much work done. But here comes a devastating Final Transmutation. This is probably going to finish off my Bray Shaman, and let's just go ahead and take a look quickly at his kill total. Yeah, 41 kills. Or no, sorry, that's with Morgur. We'll have to look at after the fact, but I think he did get a pretty good Amber Spear that unfortunately I missed. But anyway, that Final Transmutation doesn't do a whole lot to Morgur. I mean, granted, he had already taken some damage, but the regen and the magic resistance will definitely let him weather the storm there a little bit. You can see we've been able to pull back the balance of power and just kind of staying patient, slowly skirmishing around and keeping these Centaurs moving. We've been able to grind out a lot of the enemy cav, and my opponent has also overcommitted in chasing in a few different instances, which definitely cost him pretty severely. You can see the Altdorf Griffites here, though, just going to get dragged down by overwhelming models. The Empire had lost the infantry fight. I mean, even Spearmen and arms with shields are pretty cost effective, but the Gore Herds with shields actually match up pretty well against them because of that trait I mentioned at the beginning of the battle, that the Beastmen sort of army-wide buff, if you will, their Primal Fury, gives the Ungor Spearman Herd in particular a really nice buff, and when that's active, they're pretty cost-effective low-tier troops. And nope, give spearmen, not spearmen at arms, sorry, state troop spearmen with shields run for their money, certainly. But anyway, you can see the witch hunter getting ratted off here, just trying to clean up the remaining ground forces so that Balthazar realizes his folly and gets the heck out of here. But anyway, one unit of Reichsguard still standing strong, going to try and get their paws on these beastmen, but unfortunately, well, we do go ahead and just countercharge here, but there are these Ungor spearmen herd, and more Centaur is going to go ahead and rear charge here, and even though they're not AP troops, just their charge bonus and the overwhelming amount of unit models here is enough to drag down the last of the Reichsguard, and as much as it pains me to do so, we do gain a victory over the Empire here, with Morker chasing off the Witch Hunter, and it's pretty much just Balthazar at this point, still holding things up. Not sure there's any other Empire troops that aren't routed yet, but anyway, Balthazar comes down. Him and Morker are going to go ahead and have a duel amidst the corpses of Morker's Chaos Spawn here, which apparently they haven't fixed that bug yet, where Morker uses Kazrak's whip, which is interesting in and of itself, but he's going to go ahead and get the claw hand a bit, and with Balthazar finally realizing that the battle's lost, we're going to go ahead and call it a victory for the Beastmen. So, very fun stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. Fun battle and well played in my opponent, of course. And yeah, in terms of the army breakdown here, Centaurs with great weapons, of course, showing their value here. And in my tips video, my tips to improve your micro video, some of you had mentioned in the comments, multiple people had mentioned, in order to help improve your micro, you should play factions like the Beastmen, who definitely require a pretty good amount of micro. You saw me, I was caught multiple times by the Reichsguard, but thankfully I was there in time to be able to save the Centaurs. I could have done better, certainly, and it would have made the battle much easier. Almost threw it away at one point there, but yeah, thankfully for me, the Centaurs were able to stay on station, and 3 out of the 4 got an XP chevron over the course of the battle, which is awesome. These 3 Ungor Spearmen herd all had XP chevrons to begin with, but one of them in particular, 47 kills, and them and of course the Gore herds with shields just mopping up the state troop infantry, no problem. And then the Centaurs and the Centaurs with throwing axes, the Centaurs and the more Centaurs, did pretty well against the Reichsguard overall. You know, they were able to just kind of play the long game there, and that's what you want to do when you're playing the Beastmen versus a heavy cavalry faction in particular, like the Empire, Bretonnia, High Elves, sometimes the Vampires too, although that matchup is really hard. But in general, you want to try and play the long game against their cavalry, and, you know, hit and run as much as you can, try and draw their units out, and once they're isolated, that's when you want to bring the house and just charge in everything if you can. You know, terror units are always nice. The Regiment of Renowned Minotaurs can be pretty good, but the Empire has access to a lot of fire damage, which is not, I'm not crazy about them in this particular matchup, but in a lot of other matchups, I would say the Regiment of Renowned Minotaurs, the Butchers of Kalkengard, are definitely going to be solid picks. Yeah, for the Empire player, the Luminarch is a fun pick, definitely, but it's pretty risky, and it's not necessarily great against Morker, who is more often than not going to be the pick here. And I think rather than going with the missile snipe, it may be better off to go with, because the Beastmen can't really contest you in the air whatsoever, go with the Griffin snipe instead. You know, a Boris on the Griffin, and if you really want to have some fun, you can even add, here, we'll go ahead and go to the post-battle screen. You can even go ahead and add in a Lore of Beasts wizard, an Amber Wizard here. He can go on the Griffin, of course, as well. And against the Beastmen, you have a few different abilities. If you really want to go all in on the terror bombing, you can bring Transformation of Kadan and go ahead and summon some Cygors. In terms of self-buffing the Amber Wizard, Pan's Pelt is pretty good for him because he has pretty low armor. That extra physical resistance and, of course, speed can be quite useful as well. Amber Spear from a high angle isn't great. It's definitely better to cast from the ground, so while he's on the Griffin, I would recommend cutting that. And Flock of Doom, if you want to have a nice, cheap DPS ability, it's decent. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good against big infantry blobs, certainly. And then you if you're not bringing life, you probably want to bring Boris on a Griffin. If you're going to bring up Griffin Lord, he's got some pretty good buffs and debuffs. We'll probably take Hold the Line. It's pretty good buff to have, certainly. Midland Rinfang, of course, and I like to take the White Cloak of Ulrich, as it's not a conditional debuff like the Crush the Weak is. Crush the Weak can be pretty good, especially against a lower leadership faction like the Beastmen, where your Blood Roar from your other Griffin and the Terror and Fear are going to be getting you some good value. probably more often than not get Crush the Weak, but if we have the extra funds, maybe we'll come back and grab that. But anyway, in terms of the rest of an Empire build here, great swords can be pretty good to contest the front line a little bit more. If my opponent had a couple great swords there, I wouldn't have been able to just run over the front line. That battle would have been a lot tougher because I wouldn't have had the infantry support in the late game. But Spearmen Arms with Shields definitely cost-effective enough to bring in this matchup. Don't disagree with that pick at all. The Royal Altar of Gryphites are very good. As you guys know, I usually like to run them with the Warrior Priest just to juice them up even more. And because the Butchers of Kalkengard are a risk here, I'm going to go ahead and bring the Banner of Eternal Flame, give the Royal Altar of Gryphites flaming attacks, so that way if they do come up against the Butchers, they'll just dumpster them that much harder. In addition, if they manage to get a hold of Morker as well, or just the Warrior Priest in general, he can run in if anyone's attacking Morker and give them this fire damage, which will give a little bit of a bonus, I think, what is it, 25% to Morker, so that's pretty decent. In terms of the rest of the build here, I mean, the Luminarch, definitely a fun pick, but I think against the Beastmen, it's not necessarily the best just because Morker is more often than not who you're going to see. The Hammer of Witches is also pretty good, but just in general, I'm not the biggest fan of missile units against the Beastmen that aren't mobile. To that effect, we're going to go ahead and grab some Pistoliers who I know used to be pretty memey, but I actually think they're pretty decent right now, especially in this matchup. They can apply some nice missile fire, and they're nice and mobile so they can run away from Centaurs, and in particular, if they're running away from Centaurs, they're probably also shooting them in the face while they're running, which is very beneficial for the Empire, certainly. And then from there, I mean, I guess you do have the funds. You could go ahead and snag the Hammer of Witches if the map's nice and open. Let's see. You've got plenty of terror, a decent frontline presence, although maybe a little bit thin in the front line. Free Company also not a bad pick here if you do want to bring some infantry missiles, because they have decent enough combat stats and they also come in a higher unit model count. Means they're a little bit harder to take down than something like a handgunner or a crossbowman, and generally the Beastmen don't really have the armor necessary to justify handgunners, so the Free Company militia will do just fine shooting at, you know, Minotaurs, Centaurs, a lot of the good targets for the Beastmen. So of course, if they do happen to bring a couple Bestigor, you've got Boris and the Amber Wizard with the armor piercing to deal with them, and of course the Royal Altar of Gryphites as well. So yeah, something like this I think could be pretty solid. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, though. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, all that jazz. You already know. So we'll see you next time.